Welcome to the Big Scientist channel, where we explore the why so you know how. If you want to know how to create this dreamy, creamy, and delicious summer treat, then subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay tuned. Now let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get our watermelon juice ready. So first you want to cube up some watermelon, and then we're going to go ahead and blend it in our blender, and you only need about 2 cups of watermelon juice, which is equivalent to about 4 cups of diced watermelon. Once we've blended the watermelon up, now you can go ahead and strain it, and we're straining it so we can get out all of the excess pulp or any seeds that we kind of blended up in there. We want to make sure we just have pure watermelon juice so we can get a nice smooth base. So once our watermelon juice has been blended and strained, now we can move on to getting into some of the science of our watermelon sherbet. So we're going to be adding sugar, granulated sugar, and also corn syrup to our watermelon sherbet. And the reason for this is because sugar is one of the key components when you're making any kind of fruit sorbet or sherbet. And the reason for this is because sugar actually helps to break up the ice crystals in this, because this is mostly just water and fruit juice. There's not a lot of things to interact that will stop the formation of crystals. So if we don't have ice crystals, so if we don't have something in there to disrupt the formation of ice crystals, we're really just going to end up with a fruit ice block. And in order to prevent this, what we're doing is we're adding in the sugar, and the sugar will actually it inhibits the growth of sugar crystals in the liquid when it's cooled or frozen. And one way to tell that you actually have an adequate amount of sugar to help with this is to do something called the egg test. Now, the egg test actually works by you take a raw egg, a clean raw egg, and raw eggs will actually sink in water. So they are more dense than water, so they will sink. Now, when you add sugar to a water solution, such as fruit juice like this watermelon juice, the sugar actually makes the water more dense, and this means that the sugar gets into the spaces between the water molecules, so it creates more density in your solution, and this makes the egg float, because the egg can no longer just fall through those spaces that were there when the water molecules are just water molecules. Now, because those spaces are filled with sugar, it is not able to sink as much. So you know that you have a perfectly balanced sugar solution when you put a raw egg in and it doesn't sink to the bottom, it actually floats. And all you need is about a quarter size amount of the shell to show through to know that you have an adequate amount of sugar. And again, the reason that we want to make sure we have an adequate amount of sugar is because sugar will inhibit the ice crystal formation. And this creates a smoother, more creamy texture to your sherbet. And it makes it so that it's not going to be an icy solution at the end. It's not going to be kind of like shaved ice. It's going to be more of a smoothest, like ice cream. Now, we've talked a little bit about the sugar science, so now let's talk about what is actually making sherbet and not sorbet. So the difference between sherbet and sorbet is that sherbet actually contains milk. So the milk in the sherbet actually helps to give the sherbet a creamier texture, and it also gives it a different kind of mouthfeel because of the fat from the milk. So fat in milk actually contributes to having a more smooth mouthfeel to your frozen dessert, because the fat actually will coat the tongue, and it helps to make it so that you don't get that harsh cold taste right away. It kind of makes it softer on your tongue. And fat in milk also helps to contribute to imparting the flavors of the ice cream, or not the ice cream, but the sherbet or whatever you're creating a little bit better, because the fat tends to hold on to the flavors that you add to it. And then the final way that fat actually changes this from a sorbet, which is just the fruit juice and sugar, to a sherbet, is that the milk fats will actually also make this melt slower, because fat stays solid longer than ice. The melting time will be slower for sherbet than it would be for sorbet. Now I get the question is, what makes sherbet different than ice cream? So ice cream actually has to have at least 10% milk fat to be considered ice cream, and sherbet only has between 1 to 2% milk fat. Sherbet is most usually typically less than 10% milk fat. Because of this, it is not really considered ice cream. It's considered a milk frozen dessert. It's not ice cream. So that's the difference between ice cream, sherbet, and sorbet. So once we've added all of our sugars, our stabilizer, which we're using cornstarch here, and if you haven't already, please go ahead and watch our cornstarch video. Cornstarch has a lot of utilities in the kitchen, and it's really interesting product, so please check that out if you haven't already. But once we've added all of these ingredients, then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and stream in our milk and get that incorporated into the solution. And then once we've done all this, we're going to let our mixture chill. You want to make sure that your sherbet mixture is cold before we start to churn it, or before we move on to the next steps of actually freezing it. This helps to make sure that the ice crystals form uniformly and we don't get big large ice chunks, or it doesn't take a really long time to chill. So once our sherbet has set in the fridge for a few hours and chilled sufficiently, we can go ahead and churn it. Now if you have an ice cream maker, you can churn it in your ice cream maker. If you do not have an ice cream maker, you can just pour this into a baking dish, and every 30 minutes just whisk the mixture up to break up the ice crystals and to kind of beat in some air, and that's where your smoothness and your creaminess is going to come from. And you're going to make sure that you make the ice crystals smaller so that you get that smoother, creamier mouthfeel. But you want to make sure you're whisking it sufficiently about every 30 minutes as it's in the freezer to get the consistency that you want. If you have an ice cream maker, just churn it for about 15 to 20 minutes until it's like a kind of a milkshake texture, and then we're going to transfer it into a freezer safe container and let it harden up a little bit more before we scoop it out. Now once the ice cream has sat in the fridge for a while, or the freezer for a while, we can go ahead and take it out and scoop it out and see what our results look like. And here you have it. Delicious, smooth, creamy, amazing summer dessert sherbet. Please make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on all of our science. And if you enjoyed this video, please share, like, and comment. Let us know if you've tried this sherbet. And until next time, happy baking.